Hi everybody and welcome to the Bare Necessities. I'm Bear and this week we're going to be doing something a little different than we usually do. Most of the time we have made sweet things, so brownies, cookies, cakes, things like that. This week we're trying something a little different and kind of super tasty, at least in my household. This week we're going to be making buffalo cheddar cauliflower tots, right? Really great with ranch or just really great straight out of the oven, after a few minutes. Don't burn your mouth. You start with just a huge amount of cauliflower. It's usually about, like all the recipes I found, they're various. For mine, it's about 2 large cauliflower heads, and you're just going to cut the florets off and keep a little bit of the stem. That's fine. It still gets tender. You're going to get a big pot of water boiling with some salt in it, not much, not even salty as the sea. And let them boil in that water for about 5 minutes just to soften. After that, you're going to let them dry on a towel somewhere, just kind of let them sit, get all that extra moisture because you don't want them to be wet, but you do want them to be a little bit soft. Fresh cauliflower would stay extra crunchy inside. Not that I've found that out the hard way. And so you need to cook it a little bit ahead. This was frozen cauliflower because best way ever. So I got 3 of the little bags of frozen cauliflower and it comes out to about the same weight. And what I did was I just thawed them, let them sit for a couple of hours just to kind of thaw and come up to temperature. They were really, really wet, of course. So since we already have to have our oven set to 350, note that, I went ahead and just roasted them for about 20 minutes to just dry them out. What you do is once you have your cauliflower soft, you're going to take it and put it into a food processor. If you don't have a food processor, that's fine. You just get really chop happy with a knife. Once you have all of your cauliflower into your food processor, which thankfully mine is ginormous. Otherwise, this would be 2 or 3 batches. And that's cool, whatever, So we have that, and we're going to go ahead and give that just a whiz up until it's broken down into about rice-sized pieces. So, of course, riced cauliflower would be great if you already have it. I actually have a couple of bags in my freezer, but I didn't want to use them for that because we're using them for tomorrow for a casserole. Because casserole. And you're going to just chop it up until it's fine as rice. So let's get started on that. All right, we have it in fairly small chunks. I still have a few bigger ones, but that's fine. We're going to be adding more stuff into this, and it'll continue mixing it all up. Into this, we're going to be putting in 1 small sweet onion. We're going to mix that in, and I just cut it into chunks small enough that it'll blend in pretty well. And then into that as well, gotta find it, we're going to put 1 large egg with yolk. Let's go ahead and add the buffalo sauce. I usually wait a little bit longer, but this is 2 tablespoons of, it's actually just hot sauce. Buffalo sauce because it has a lot of butter and things in it. It's a little higher in fat, and if anybody has been watching any of these, I try to reduce that for myself just because of the bariatric tummy. But the hot sauce, I use Frank's Red Hot. Love that stuff. Goes on everything. And so that'll add that nice buffalo-esque flavor, especially once we mix all of our cheese in. So let's just get that back to mixing and finish up the first part of the dough. Okay, now that we've recovered from this technical difficulty, my computer decided to stop recording. I went ahead and finished blending down the cauliflower. Mine was a little too well roasted in the oven, it turns out, and so it was extremely soft, but it was also more dry than I thought it was originally. So it's come down, but it is not wet in any way, which is fantastic to me. So I'm just going to go ahead. It ended up much finer than I had wanted. So instead of the rice cauliflower, which you would get if your cauliflower was at a tender crisp level, so if it's just soft enough without being squishy like mine ended up, we live and we learn. It's experimenting, and this is fine. Usually I boiled mine, and it's just for a couple of minutes, of course, so it gets less tender than I got in the oven. Learn from my mistakes or try it this way. This is still going to turn out fine. It's going to be a much closer texture, and it'll be more like a whipped kind of potato puff instead of just a tater tot. Either way, it smells amazing and it's going to taste really, really good. Let's get the cauliflower moved over to a big bowl. And remember, in this, we have our buffalo or hot sauce. You can use either one. I just use hot sauce because of the fat content in buffalo that my stomach does not enjoy. All right, now that we've got the cauliflower in the bowl, remember that we have our hot sauce and our egg and our sweet onion mixed into here. We're going to go ahead and add about a cup of cheese. Now this is a blend of a Belvitano black pepper cheddar, a rough half cup of parmesan, a very dry parmesan, grated very fine, and then Colby Jack, because I love Colby Jack, and then Tillamook aged cheddar. So it's a nice blend of really strong flavored cheeses that are kind of on the dry side. Some of them are a little on the fatty side, and that's why we really also wanted to avoid the fat in the buffalo sauce. And if you don't want to use cheese, that's fine. This will still turn out really well. Now, into this, we're going to add 3/4 of a cup of, this is whole wheat, but breadcrumbs. I'm going to add a spice mix. Into this, I mixed 1 teaspoon of fresh ground pepper and then about a half teaspoon of salt. Then there is a teaspoon of granulated garlic, because garlic is life, but you only need a little bit for these. It goes a really, really long way on this. And then finally, I've also added a 1/4 teaspoon of smoked paprika, a 1/4 teaspoon of cayenne pepper, and then a 1/4 teaspoon of turmeric, just for the color. It'll help boost up the color of these really, really well. And this all gives it some amazing depth of flavor. All right. So now that we have that mixed up, let me move my cutting board and the little blobs of cauliflower that jumped ship. Let's get that out of the way, because now we're going to be making our tots. I have 2 baking sheets. They're probably not going to be enough. If you don't have parchment paper, if you're a person that just doesn't use it, cool. Make sure that your baking pan, if you're using non-stick, still spray it just the tiniest bit. This will stick. If you're using non-stick, make sure it's really well greased or oiled. So we are going to get to scooping. So roll them into a little bit of a log, and then you're going to just pat down the ends to make a little tater tot shape. And what we're going to do is just go through and scoop all of these and get them onto our lined baking sheet, and I'll be right back. All right, so as you can see, I have scooped and rolled all of our cauliflower tots. There ended up being 58 of these, which is fantastic news. They freeze really, really well, and you can just pop some into your oven, your toaster oven, or even just to a pan. Microwaving's fine, they're just going to be soft. That's all. Again, we have our oven preheated to 350 degrees. We're going to bake these for 20 minutes. And what I will be doing is, after about 10 minutes, I will be switching them top to bottom and turning them around like I do with anything baked in the oven. And after that, I'm going to take them out and then turn over each one of the little tots and put them back in for about 12 more minutes, just to let them finish and make sure that they're nicely done and a little bit golden brown. So I will see you back in just a little while with these delicious, delicious nuggets. All right, see you on a few. All right, Alright, so I'm back and I have finished baking these off. I ended up having to bake them a slight bit longer just because of how much I had accidentally broken down the cauliflower. So they ended up baking for about 30 minutes at first, and so at 15 minutes I switched them top to bottom. So remember, switch your pans and then turned them around so that they got an even bake. After that 30 minutes, I went ahead and took them out, flipped them all over on their pans, and put them back in for an additional 15 minutes just to finish kind of cooking through and making sure they're perfectly puffed. And this is what we ended up with. They've cooled a little bit, so now you can actually see the inside is nice and soft and flaky for these. They'll be really similar to this, a little bit more chunky, kind of like a really soft tater tot if you do them with the rice cauliflower. I'm going to serve these with a little bit of ranch because my family enjoys the ranch and the buffalo together. But really you can have these with anything. If you don't season them like this, if you just leave out the hot sauce and everything and just have them like a very good traditional tater tot, a little salt and pepper on the inside, then these are really great with just ketchup. Or if you have hummus or things like that, they're really great dippers for that too. And as we went along, we discovered a few things. Like one thing is, not everything turns out the way you thought it was going to. I thought the cauliflower would work the same because I wasn't really paying attention. And that's on me. But we all make mistakes in the kitchen or where else. And the cool thing about making mistakes in the kitchen, they can be fixed or they can turn into something great anyway. With these, they still turn into nice little puffs of cauliflower goodness. And oh my gosh, they smell amazing because of, I don't know, a ton of cheese. But you don't have to beat yourself up. It's just cooking. I promise you, it'll turn out okay. So you over pureed your cauliflower. So you over mixed your eggs and your flour and everything else until it's kind of a gooey mess. You learn how to fix it, or you learn how to use what you've made. It's a lot like in life. Not everything we do is perfect. And in fact, often the best things that we do aren't. We don't have to be. And that's the best part of being human, is we can just be as good as we can and not really have to worry about the rest. So until next week, I hope you enjoy this recipe. I know I'm going to, and my boys definitely will. I'll see ya. Bye.